Welcome to the Terry Podcast, everyone. This is Season 1, Episode 2.
Episode 2 already, wow.
Yeah, time flies. Today we're talking about healthcare waste, HAZMAT essentials.
HAZMAT, that sounds serious.
It is. That's why this episode is brought to you by the Terry Quality Team.
Right, because Terry is all about safety in healthcare.
Exactly. And we're a medical health tech company, so this is right up our alley. We got some really interesting information on this topic, and we want to share the key insights with you. Think of it as like a crash course on HAZMAT in healthcare.
Sounds good. A crash course. So no need for textbooks then.
No textbooks. We're going to cover what makes healthcare waste hazardous, the different categories, and how to keep everyone safe.
So like the real world stuff.
Absolutely. So when we say hazardous healthcare waste, what does that actually mean?
It's basically any waste from medical facilities that can cause harm, right?
Right.
And this harm can be from infectious agents like, bacteria and viruses.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Those are the obvious ones.
Yeah, but it can also be from dangerous chemicals or even radioactive materials.
That's not just your everyday trash.
It's definitely not. This stuff is a direct health risk. We can't just toss it in the regular bin.
Okay, so the information we got breaks this down into different categories. Can we go through some of the main ones?
Sure, yeah. Let's see, we have flammable waste. Like, think alcohol, the stuff you use for disinfecting all the time.
Alcohol. That's flammable.
Well, yeah, it's pretty obvious when you think about it. You wouldn't want a fire in a hospital, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Never really thought of it that way. What else is there?
Then there's toxic waste. This is where the heavy hitters are. Things like chemotherapy drugs.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And some tar-based products, too. This stuff is really dangerous. It can actually change your DNA.
Seriously.
Yeah, mutagenic, it's called. And it can be toxic to your cells directly, cytotoxic, and even cause problems for babies during pregnancy.
That's scary.
It really is. And, they've even found traces of these drugs in the water near hospitals.
That's a big problem.
Huge. It just shows how important it is to dispose of this waste properly. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, reactive waste. That includes things like sulfuric acid.
Sulfuric acid, isn't that
Yeah.
super corrosive?
Yeah, and chlorine powder, too. The stuff can react violently, create fumes, even explode.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. It's not something to mess around with.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next? Oh, allergen or contact sensitizer waste.
Allergens, okay.
Yeah, like glutaraldehyde. That's used to sterilize equipment, but it can cause allergic reactions for some people.
So even stuff that's used for good can be hazardous.
Exactly. Then we have the explosive waste. That's things like, picric acid.
Explosive waste in a hospital.
Well, you got to remember, hospitals use all sorts of chemicals.
True.
This stuff can literally explode if it's not handled right. Fertilizers and ammonia, too, they fall in that category. Scary stuff. Okay, so next up, infectious waste. This is probably the one that's most on everyone's mind when they think about hospitals.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Absolutely. It's all about preventing the spread of infection, right? Things like TB cultures.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the actual bacteria.
Yep. And a whole bunch of other stuff that we'll get to in a bit. Let's see. We've also got radioactive waste, like from barium enemas and x-rays.
I never thought of those as hazardous.
Well, even small amounts can be dangerous if they're not disposed of correctly. And last but not least, we have corrosive waste. This is things like bleach.
Bleach? Yeah, everyone knows that can burn.
Exactly. It can damage your skin and other stuff, too. So that was a quick run through the different categories. Did any of that surprise you?
Yeah, a few things, actually. I didn't realize how many different types of hazardous waste a hospital produces.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show how important it is to have a good system in place. Speaking of which, the information you gave us focuses a lot on infectious waste. Can we talk more about that?
Absolutely. What are some of the key examples?
Okay, so first up we have anatomical waste. Basically, human tissues, organs, that kind of thing.
That's going to be handled very carefully.
You bet. They usually incinerate it or use some other special method. Then there are laboratory cultures.
Those are the actual viruses and bacteria they study in the lab, right?
Exactly. Super dangerous stuff if it gets out. They have really strict protocols for dealing with those. And then, of course, there are sharps.
Needles and stuff.
Yep. Needles, scalpels, broken glass, anything that can puncture the skin.
Those are scary. I remember once I was.
Well, we all have a story about a close call with the sharp, I'm sure, but the risk is real, not just from the cut itself, but from infections like hepatitis B and HIV. And finally, we have live viruses.
Live viruses. That sounds intense.
Yeah, they use them in research and diagnostic work. Obviously, you got to be super careful with those. Any waste contaminated with live viruses needs to be handled like it's, the plague.
Wow. So it's clear that hospital waste in general is a serious issue. The information you shared actually calls it highly hazardous. Why is that, considering all these different categories?
Well, think about it. Hospital waste often contains a mix of all these different things. You could have, like, infectious materials mixed with cytotoxic drugs all jumbled up with sharps. It's a cocktail of danger.
A hazardous cocktail.
Exactly. So you can see why it's so important to dispose of everything properly. There are strict procedures in place for a reason, and one of the most important things is separating the waste correctly. You know, that color-coded system they
Oh,
use?
yeah, with the different colored bags and bins.
Right. That's key to making sure everything gets handled safely.
Can we break down what each color means?
Sure. So red bags, those are specifically for anatomical waste. Tissues, organs, and all that.
Got it. Red for anatomical waste. What about yellow?
Yellow bags are for highly infectious waste. Stuff like lab cultures, anatomical waste, again, and anything with a lot of blood or body fluids on it. Oh, and cytotoxic waste, too.
So yellow for the really dangerous infectious stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Then there are yellow sharps containers, those hard, puncture-proof boxes.
Yeah, I've seen those around.
Those are for, needles, scalpels, anything sharp that could pierce a regular bag. Super important for preventing injuries.
Makes sense. What about black bags?
Black bags are for the non-hazardous stuff, like
Yeah.
regular trash, packaging, and kitchen waste from areas that aren't handling patient stuff.
So the lower risk stuff. And what about those, I think they're called autoclave bags.
Ah, yeah. Autoclave bags are for really nasty infectious waste that needs to be sterilized. They use a machine called an autoclave. It basically cooks the waste with high-pressure steam.
Wow. Hardcore sterilization.
Kills everything dead. So yeah, that's the color coding system. Red, yellow, black. Each color tells you how to handle the waste. Pretty simple, but crucial.
It seems pretty straightforward, but are there any specific instructions on how to actually do the separating?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Lots of them. For infectious waste, always use those yellow bags. That's the golden rule.
Yellow bags, got
For sharps, only those special yellow containers. No exceptions. Those are the rules. Yellow bags, yellow containers.
no shortcut.
Right. And then for liquid chemical waste, you got to use these super sealed, leak-proof containers. Hermetically sealed, they call it. So nothing gets out, not even fumes.
Wow, sounds intense.
It is. And for radioactive waste, it's even more strict. They use lead-shielded containers with the radiation symbol on them, that trefoil thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen that in movies and stuff.
Right. So everyone knows to be extra careful. For body parts and organs, red bags again, but those go straight to the mortuary.
Makes sense.
And cytotoxic waste, those toxic drugs we talked about, they go in yellow leak-proof containers, but they also have to be labeled specifically.
So everyone knows what they're dealing with. And finally, the regular non-hazardous waste.
Black bags for that, keep it separate from the rest.
Got it. So the color tells you where it goes.
Exactly. But it's not just about putting the right waste in the right bag. There are rules about how full you can fill the containers to.
Really? Why is that?
For safety, of course. Like sharps containers, you should only fill them about 3/4 full. Otherwise, it gets dangerous when you try to put more sharps in.
You don't want to get poked.
Exactly. And same goes for the bags, no matter the color. Only fill them about 3/4 full. That way you can tie them securely without them ripping.
No spills.
Exactly. Safety first. Okay, now let's talk about something called material safety data sheets.
MSDS.
Yeah, or SDS, they call it now. These are super important documents.
What are they for?
They give you all the info you need about a hazardous chemical, like the ingredients, the properties, boiling point, flammability, all that good stuff.
Sounds technical.
It is, but it's important. They also tell you about the health hazards, how to use it safely, what kind of protective gear you need, and who to call if something goes wrong.
So it's like a safety manual for chemicals.
Exactly. And employers have to make sure they have one for every hazardous chemical they use.
And they have to keep them organized and accessible.
Exactly. It's the law. But even with all these precautions, accidents can still happen, right? So let's talk about needle stick injuries.
Oh yeah, those are scary.
They are. So what's the first thing you do if you get poked by a needle?
I don't know, squeeze out the blood.
No, don't squeeze. That just pushes the contamination deeper.
Oh, okay. What should you do then?
Let it bleed a little, then wash it really well with soap and water. Then apply some alcohol, dry it, and cover it with a bandage.
Sounds pretty basic, but important.
It is. And of course, you have to report it to your supervisor right away.
Of course.
And then there's paperwork. You got to fill out an occupational injury report and review the patient's file, if you know who they are, to see if they had any infections.
Makes sense.
And
What about going to the doctor?
oh, yeah, definitely. You got to go to the employee health clinic or the ER if it's after hours. They might need to give you some medication, depending on the situation.
Okay, so needle sticks are one thing. What about blood spills? Those happen too, right?
All the time. And there are procedures for those, too. They actually categorize them by size: major, minor, and drop.
Major, minor, and drop. Sounds like a weather report.
Kind of, yeah. A major spill is over 50 milliliters of blood. Minor is under 50. And a drop spill is, well, just a single drop.
So different procedures for different sizes.
Exactly. For a major spill, you call in the cleaning crew, but a nurse has to supervise. For minor and drop spills, the nurse handles it themselves.
Okay, so what's the procedure for a blood spill? Let's say a minor one.
First, you cordon off the area, make sure no one walks through it.
No, I spread it around.
Right. Then you put on your PPE, your gloves, gown, all that jazz.
Safety first.
Always. And then you got to get the spill kit. It's got all the stuff you need in it.
Like what?
Disinfectant, absorbent granules, that kind of thing. Then you clean up any broken glass or sharps very carefully.
Don't want any more injuries.
Nope. Then you sprinkle those absorbent granules all over the spill, let it soak up the blood.
And then just sweep it up.
We'll carefully scoop it up and put it in a biohazard container. Then you douse the whole area with disinfectant, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then wipe everything clean.
So it's really a two-step process.
Yeah, remove and disinfect. You don't want to miss anything.
That makes sense.
Then you dispose of your PPE properly, wash your hands really well, and you're done.
So as we can see, managing hazardous waste in healthcare is super important. It's a whole process.
It is. You have to be careful with everything, from the different categories to the disposal procedures.
It's all about safety, right? Protecting healthcare workers, patients, and the environment.
Exactly. It's a big responsibility. We all got to do our part.
Well said. We hope this deep dive into healthcare waste management has been helpful for you all. If you want more information, please visit our website, terry.care.
And it really makes you think, with all the new medical technology coming out, how are these procedures going to change in the future?
That's a good question for our listeners to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive on HAZMAT's essentials in healthcare waste management.